Tonight's going to be a short one. We're going to be talking about Farmer Wants a Wife, which has started back up, and then we're also going to be touching on an Ag Fab topic, which has been sent through, which is the Victorian Fire Levy.
Hi, welcome to Agsolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer, and I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are Agsolutely Fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.
So let's get into today's episode.
Before we jump into all of that, let's start with some chit chat. Gillian, happy Easter. What did you get up to over the break?
I did very little, to be completely honest. We're mustering at the moment, but because there's a whole contingent here of everyone else, I got to just hang around the house and do house stuff and make marshmallow Easter bunnies and all that sort of thing. So it was a nice little break. Forgot I had an assignment due on Easter Monday and got a polite email from my lecturer saying, if you intend to continue in this unit, please submit your assessment. I'm like, oh shit. But yeah, got that done, and yeah. But you did something exciting, Katja. I saw a picture of you on the internet doing something a bit unusual for some people. What have you been up to?
So I went and saw my family for Easter, and the unusual practice that you saw was that we decided that for Easter we would all do ice baths. So I did my first ice bath, so 11 degrees, 5 minutes, which apparently is quite a hard and difficult thing to do. A lot of people lose their breath, or they feel too cold, or they just can't do it. But I mean, I thought it was pretty good, and it took a lot of the pain out of my system. I did have to take my rings off though, because my rings started to make my fingers hurt because they were getting so cold. Once I took those off, it was fine. So apart from that, we've just been on farm and keep on keeping on.
So one of the reasons we're smashing out a very quick episode today is we've just come off an Australian Women in Agriculture meeting. Katja's kids are sick, and Katja may be following down the rabbit hole. And yeah, I've just got a lot of stuff to do. So we'll get a quick episode out for everyone so you can listen to it over the Anzac Day long weekend. And yeah, let's go. A farmer wants a wife. Jesus. It's always the same though.
So I enjoy watching the show. So while I was watching the show, I didn't really take that many notes. I think the only one I wrote down was absolute hilarious moment is when Farmer Jared had to work out during his speed date whether or not it was his cousin he'd been paired with.
That was a bit, but I'm pretty sure the producers did that on purpose. One of the most eyebrow-raising comments I heard from one of the farmers, I can't even remember his name, but he was asked if he worked out by one of his speed dates because she's very interested in health and fitness, and he said, I chased some goats once, which is a very farmer answer. So I think she was trying to be all coy and sexy, be like, oh yeah, do you have a six-pack? Oh, I don't know, I chased the goats once. Which may explain he wasn't picking up what she was putting down, so that might explain why he's not married yet. So be interesting to see how he progresses.
I also noted there was a lot of gifts this year. So in previous years, there's been like one or two girls, they might bring a gift or bring something as an icebreaker, like a poem or something like that. But every second girl seemed to have something. And I did want to give kudos to one of the ladies. She brought a cake, she'd made a cake, she brought it with her. They awkwardly tried it together. But unfortunately, she wasn't one of the 5 that he took to the farm. But I thought, good on you for trying to show your baking skills and for getting out there.
Yeah, the gift thing's always boggled my mind a little bit, actually, because like I know it's an icebreaker and it's a bit of a cute thing to do. And there was one lass there who'd been to Ireland, and old mate really loved sheep, so she had a sheep magnet with 2 sheep and they're in love or whatever. So yeah, that's a bit cute. But oh, I'd rather die, I think, than write a poem for someone that I've never met before and then do it on live TV. Like, and I would just love to know. And some of the previous contestants who've been on Farm What's a Wife who may have been witness to these shenanigans, you can let us know privately. We won't dob you in or anything. Is this something that the producers put you up to, like the gifting and the reading of poems and that sort of stuff, or is this just completely off your own bat, just getting in there with the best chances, just going straight to the lead with a bit of bribery? We'd love to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or whether it's some of the homework that they've done, because I noticed when I've previously watched like Survivor, because it is another show that I enjoy watching, and when you go into an all-star situation or when they're first being interviewed on the beach and things like that, they usually talk about doing their homework. So I wonder if before the girls go on the show, whether they watch a couple of seasons and pick up, maybe a couple of tips and tricks.
They probably do, because I think it's sort of evolved, and you can see this with any sort of reality TV, like the first episodes of MasterChef and those sorts of things. They're just really pure, chaotic, just average, everyday people. But as the seasons progress, the people get more polished. It's like, Australia's Got Talent or The Voice, they start out with people who were like singing in their shower and stuff, and now everyone's got a vocal coach or they're in a home band, all this sort of stuff. So I think it's just a natural progression. Like the more that they watch it and view it, it's like, oh, this person did this on this series and they got a good result, so I'm going to go in there with the best possible chance. And they could probably be stalking them on social media like Instagram and stuff and trying to get a little bit of an inside track there. But I would say there's a lot of, as these things develop, it's like, okay, I know what's going to make good TV. I know what's going to get me not portrayed as the villain in this situation, because, to add a bit of drama, things get edited a certain way that we're not aware of. And so, yeah, I think it's a few different things at play there.
Yeah. So one thing that was interesting to see in the media after the premiere went live was there was a lot of debate around, is there enough diversity on Farmer Wants a Wife? And I was sort of taken back a little bit by it, because I went into the comments sections and there was comments like, you need an ethically diverse farmer. You need a farmer who is older. Where are the women farmers at? Why aren't they on the show? And I sort of felt, well, I wonder if these are people who are watching just this season, because in past seasons of Farmer Wants a Wife, those demographics have been shown.
Yeah, I'd say so. And this conversation comes up every year, and a lot of it is clickbaity stuff by news agencies, and that's part of the PR sort of piece about there's no such thing as bad publicity. So, but yeah, I've seen old people, I've seen ladies. Was it last season they had a lady, and the blokes that they trotted out for her to be potentially partnered with, like, oh my God, I would let the human race die before I'd partner up with one of those, if that was like a nuclear sort of winter scenario. And I think the pickings are pretty slim out there for lady farmers who find themselves single and ready to marry. And a lot of there's a lot of different reasons for that we could probably go into at another time. But yeah, there is but one thing that does keep coming up is like, where's the gay farmers? And like, we know people who are homosexual or lesbian or whoever they choose to identify. We know that they exist in agriculture. We know some of them, like some of them are our good mates. So, but then you think, okay, if they put themselves out there, they want a partner. Their own community may not know how they identify and how they choose to partner up, which could be another massive thing. The community that they live in may be aware of it but find it quite distasteful, and then they're opening themselves up because we know haters exist and some people are terrible, and they might just want to protect themselves. So I don't know. Again, if you have the inside track on some of this, let us know. Have same-sex attracted people been approached to be on the show or not? Is that something that the production team doesn't even entertain? Like, is it because it's in a certain time slot that they don't want to do that because it would upset a lot of people and they'd write angry letters to the TV station? So, yeah, it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, it would be. Because I also got a question, like I was going through the comments as well, and they were saying, well, where are the other farmers? There was 8 farmers who were put up on the website for eligible men, and they've only gone through 4. But I think that's quite normal for the recruitment process, isn't it? Like, that's quite normal.
I think so, because there's between, and people have to acknowledge the time lag. So between selecting those people and then actually moving to filming, anything can happen in those people's lives. I did read an interesting comment about one farmer. There was meant to be 5, but he's been edited out of the whole thing and nobody has disclosed why. So that's going to be a very interesting thing. And someone made the comment, it's because he wasn't ready to settle down. So did he like get on the show and play up? Like, did all the girls have complaints about him? Like, yeah. Was he?
Which farmer was that? Was he? Do we know which farmer?
It did mention him in one of the articles. Oh, talk about something else, and I'll quickly look it up because I reckon I saved it. But yeah, it is. He was cut out of everything.
That wouldn't have been an easy task once everything had filmed and then they'd had to cut him out either, because there'd be hundreds of thousands of hours recorded.
They had to edit, and that's what they said, it was very challenging to edit him out, and not just him, but the girls as well, because there's a group of them. And I think that's why we've seen, usually they all go to the same location. It appears to me that they've filmed in several different locations this time. So have they had to re-record some stuff? It's just, Because
they're at a different mansion, aren't they? Like, they're not at the same filming location as traditionally they have been either. It looked different. And I was wondering whether it had been filmed in different areas or whether they were actually at a different place.
I don't pay that much attention to the background and everything, to be honest, because I couldn't really be asked. I'm too busy looking at the body language and the faces that people are pulling and that sort of thing. It's one of those things that they probably do have to find different filming locations and that fit in with where the cast can meet and all that sort of stuff. But
so they are putting a lot of emphasis on the media outlets in comparing it to reality TV shows like MAFS, especially when they're like, they should be doing this with it, they should be doing that with it. But I think at its core, although it's still reality TV, I think one of the reasons that it has been so popular for so long and why people still coming back to it and still keep applying for it is because they've also put a lot of work into advertising the success rate. So 11 marriages, 2 engagements, 22 babies, and now they're starting to show the lives of past contestants who were successful. So they're going back into their archives and they're bringing back out couples who were on some of the early seasons and really focusing on that. So I'm wondering if they're doing that to combat some of this negativity, but also some of the comparison between modern reality TV shows and saying it's different and it always has been.
Right. So here's the information on who got booted. Farmer Jack, apparently. I don't know who this dude is. Apparently there's a huge scandal behind the scenes. I don't know how much scandal could there possibly be. He was in the trailer in March, and now he's been cut out.
Because there were 2 Farmer Jacks by the looks of it.
Okay. This is a quote from the article that I'm reading, that he was removed from the show due to his fuckboy antics, both on and off screen during filming. So I would say he was playing the ladies for fools. He promised one of the ladies that they were exclusive, but was hooking up with the other women on farm behind her back. Not cool, man.
Not cool at all.
And he was also sleeping with several other women not on the show at the same time. If you want to do that, that's your own business. But where's your contractual obligations here? And an honest, transparent. If you want to have multiple partners, knock yourself out. But everyone else has to be aware. You can't be saying to people, "Oh, you're the one for me, definitely," and still keeping other people on a string. Apparently, he was a liability to the show and its wholesome and authentic image. Well, but actually, of all the things, I would actually pay to watch the women tear him apart when they found out what he was up to. So.
I wonder if they're worried about defamation of character if they'd aired it as well.
Possibly. He's a bull riding type person. Read into that as you will. If you've ever spent much time with bull riders, there's some very wholesome, lovely rodeo people out there, but that's not the way to bet. Yeah. So, yeah, we've got Farmer Tom, Farmer Corey, Farmer Jared, and Farmer Thomas, but Farmer Jack got the boot because he was a naughty, naughty boy.
Naughty, naughty boy.
Yeah. And it's a shame that the girls participated in that process in good faith, and then, yeah, that's not cool either. Don't do that.
I really hope that in that particular circumstance that they offered additional support for those ladies afterwards, maybe even some health clinics in that case.
Oh, yes, definitely. Got to look after yourselves, ladies. Like, do what you want, but make sure you keep yourself protected at all times, because you can't. Old mate's proven you can't trust people.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to the middle of our episode. Gillian, did you have any questions come in on the Ag Fabs this week?
No, no questions so far, but people are very keen to see how Farmer Wants a Wife progresses and the on-farm dates and all those sorts of things, which I'm quite looking forward to as well. And I was really disappointed to see some of the lovely ladies that I thought were just right. This is from a South Australian perspective, that I thought I'd love to see them move to regional South Australia, and they didn't get picked. It was really sad. So now I've got to keep an eye out for other single farmers if they still want to go and experience the farm life and connect with these ladies. So, ladies, if you are listening to this and you still like to meet a farmer, reach out and let us know, because we might run a little bit of an unofficial matchmaking service here on Agsolutely Fabulous. We will personally vet them so you don't get any fuckboy antics. And I don't mean personally vet in that sort of intimate sense. Like, that's not our purview. We will just make sure that they are not going to be terrible.
So, Gillian, that takes us to the mid of our episode. And this part of the episode is sponsored by Farm Table. So thank you, Farm Table. Farm Table now hosts our podcast page, our landing page. So I will add that in the show notes below for you all to check out. But welcome to Farm Table. Farm Table is a proud independent Australian agricultural knowledge platform, bringing together the most relevant and curated agricultural resources from around the globe. More than that, Farm Table supports industry collaboration, peer-to-peer networking, and functions to build the capacity of individuals and organisations across the entire Australian ag supply chain. With over 3,000 resources, the latest agricultural events, funding opportunities, grants, micro courses and workshops, all in one location, Farm Table makes it easier to find the information you need.
Right. Let's roll into the Victorian Fire Levy. So Victorian farmers have launched a last-minute ditch effort to block a tax hike that could cost them tens of thousands of dollars. Last year, the Victorian government announced a fire service levy would be expanded and rebranded to become the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund. So this could see farmers paying up to triple the amount for services such as 000. The fund is facing its last hurdle before becoming law, with the legislation expected to go to vote in the council very soon. But the Victorian Farmers Federation, VFF, is calling for it to be blocked in the Parliament or referred to a parliamentary inquiry. So, Gillian, for a lot of people who don't know the impact that this will make, can you please enlighten us?
Look, the thing about these levies that they put on emergency service levies is they're a bit skewed. They base them on the commercial value of the land, right? Which may work really good in town. If you've got a really high value sort of apartment or something that's worth a lot of money in town, that's probably a more equitable way to look at it, because generally if you're talking about high value real estate, you're looking at a lot of people living there, there's a lot more risk, et cetera, et cetera. When you try and apply that then to rural or food producing or commercial premises, just because the value of that thing is high does not mean that they are at greater risk or pose a greater risk to the public for these sorts of services. And it also doesn't mean that they're cash rich. They're just got a high value on a piece of paper. And if you're already involved in agriculture, we don't need to explain to you what asset rich and cash poor means, but it means that just because your farm's worth $20 million doesn't mean you've got 2 cents to rub together because of the nature of our industry. And the most, I think for me and for a lot of Victorian farmers, the most galling thing about this is that when shit gets real and there is an emergency, the CFS, I don't know what the Victorian equivalent is, a country fire service, 90% of them are volunteers.
Yes.
And they're farmers.
Yes.
So they have to do the added indignity of paying for a service that isn't going to be able to help them anyway.
That they are doing.
And if there's an emergency, they are responding to it. They are the ones out there putting their lives on the line, literally, to fight these fires. And it's I think probably rightly so, seen by a lot of people in agriculture as a means to just sort of levy a small group who won't affect the votes, and to just extract a lot of money for them and say, oh, well, it's for an emergency services. You can't really say no to that. So I really think that the Victorian government needs to take this back to the drawing board, because it's placing an intolerable burden on the people who are already volunteering with their lives. Like, they're already, literally every time there's an emergency, they put their life on the line to respond. They're not getting paid for that. They're doing it for the good of their community. They're already paying their own fair share when it comes to funding these services in their own communities, and they are also probably fundraising for their local CFS unit and their SES unit and all of those sorts of things. And like, agriculture and farmland is not the cash cow for urban areas. That's Australia-wide. Like, yeah, okay, sure, the land has a high value. You cannot extract the cash out of that, though. Technically, you could force us to do that, but that would mean making us sell up. And then who's going to buy that land, and what are they going to do with it? So there's a lot more. It's more than just looking at columns on a piece of paper. How is this going to affect local communities? What's going to happen if every single farmer in Victoria says, you know what, I'm not going to volunteer for the CFS anymore. You're getting so much money out of me. Pay for it yourself. What's going to happen next time there's a fire or a flood or a vehicle accident or, you know, any other sort of major incident that needs volunteers to roll up and help? It's eroding rural communities for the sake of people who never have to suffer the consequences. And we bang on about this all the time, but these decisions are made by people who don't have to live with the consequences of their actions. And I'm really getting sick of it. And I think everyone else is too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was everything that I had in my notes to cover as well. I just couldn't believe that when they're already struggling for volunteers, when the volunteers are already dedicating their time, their money, their skills, their effort, they're already pretty thin on the ground, they're wanting to throw this in on top. Well, okay, if I'm having to work harder and longer hours in my business and squeeze every dollar in my business to be able to do this, I don't have time to volunteer. If that's what they're asking.
Like, people, there's not just a fire and you throw your orange suit on and you roll up to volunteer. Volunteering, you're a professional in every sense of the word, except you don't get paid.
Yep.
You have to attend mandatory trainings. You have to go and be up to date with all of your skills. You have to learn to use really complex equipment, and you do that in your own time. Like, if the volunteers turned around and said to the state government, okay, so now we want to be paid for our hours, it would bankrupt the state. And that just doesn't go for fireys and SFS, it's CFS and SES. That's for every sort of volunteer person across. Like, if everyone said, I'm not going to volunteer anymore because you're trying to extract too much money from me, our society as we know would collapse. So the Victorian government really needs to take a step back, take a long, hard look at themselves and think about what they're doing to regional Victoria, because the locals will band together and they will make their own solutions. But it's going to really affect the tourists and the people who visit there. So you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Interesting that you brought up tourism there. Do you want to explain a little bit more about how that impacts, you know, that part in the community?
When tourists enter into a community, right, and we see this a lot in our neck of the woods especially, they come along with no real facilities to get themselves out of massive amounts of trouble. So they're the ones that we're dragging out of bogs or roll their caravan over on the side of the road, or when there is a major natural disaster, they're the ones stranded and stuck because they're strangers in a community. And yeah, we don't mind helping people, but they rely on the kindness of volunteers, and they rely on the people to find them and help them. And if you can't take that element out and then expect people to still be able to be welcome and visit and be safe when they travel into regional areas. It's crazy. Like, there's no amount of money that can make up for the fact that volunteers do the heavy lifting when it comes to supporting people in trouble in the regions.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of our urban listeners as well, this who may not have previously thought that this will impact them, that's some of the reasons that it will impact you, and you need to be on the right side of this argument.
And if you live in Victoria, look it up. Like, it's easy to find on Google, and contact your local member and say, hey, I don't support this. Like, they just like stop and think a little bit harder about how we can fix this, because just taxing or levying landholders in regional areas is not the answer to this problem.
No, absolutely not. And for those who have never approached their local member, they're really friendly. Most of them are really friendly, down-to-earth people who want to make a difference. So you can reach out by phone, email, or go and see them at their office if they keep regular office hours when they're there. Call the secretary up and say, hey, I just want to have a chat about this. Can I book in a time to come and see you? Part of breaking that boundary of actually picking up the phone or dropping in when you're next in town and going and seeing them, that's part of the boundary we're breaking down. It's not a them and us sort of scenario. It's we need to stand together. We need to have a voice.
And it's one thing I'll tell you is I spend a little bit of time with politicians, not as much, not a lot, and I don't like politicians are politicians, but whatever. They are normal people. You have no need to be frightened or intimidated by them. They are just people like you and me. Being a politician is just their job. It does not make them any more important or special than anybody else. There's no need to really be aggressive or violent or derogatory, but there's also no need to put them on a pedestal either, because they are just ordinary people. So just treat them like you'd treat anybody else.
Absolutely. Even if you don't have the same view, it's always nice to hear someone else's view, to be like, hey, there is another voice. So when they're asked, is there something else that's going on in the community, they can say, oh, well, I had a chat to so-and-so the other day and they mentioned this. I didn't previously know that was an issue. Whether they support it or not, they now know that there's an issue there.
Yep. And it's literally your local member's job to hear from their constituents. So make them work for their parliamentary money, and write them letters, emails, phone calls, drop in and see them, invite them to things, all that sort of thing. You might not get an answer, you might not get what you're looking for, but at least it'll be on record that you put your views and your needs in front of them. If they don't know what you want, they can't help you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Invite them to things. So if you're on a committee, if you're part of a club, if you've got an event going on, we had our local member pop in and help us welcome the opening to the 2025 Harvest Her Power conference that we had here in Dubbo. He was more than happy to come and shake hands and chat to everybody there. He was more than welcome to, even when I first approached him 18 months ago and said, hey, this is an event I want to do in our local area. And he loved it. He said, that's great. Here's a letter of recommendation to attach to your sponsorship outreaches to anyone who's wanting to volunteer their time to do the workshops and to speak. Here's a letter saying, I agree with this event and it's going to be a fantastic one.
So, yeah. Anything else that we need to tell people? I think we said we'd be short and sweet. We're only about 10 minutes shorter than we usually are. So
we do love giving our opinion. We love being here,
but
it is
we
time to
love
go.
The sounds of our own voices because it's so important and special. But no, we love bringing to light and bringing to the attention of our listeners any issues or problems that you might have. You can crowdsource and answer through us. We will never give away your identity, unless you really want us to tell people exactly who you are. If you want to ask other people a question, if you want to ask our community a question, we will maintain your privacy and we will ask the question in such a way that no one can ever find out it's you. And yeah, we're quite happy to do that on your behalf. So let us know.
Absolutely. Gillian's on the socials, so flick her a message on any of our posts, send her a private DM. I know a lot of you prefer to do the private messaging, and I'm over on the email. You can find the email in the show notes as well as on the socials. So until next week, make sure you're leaving a 5-star review so other people so other people can find us, enjoy us, hear our voices, and share the opinions that we're having. If you agree, if you don't agree, let us know. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye.